generation? The challenges they face, the way they grew up. What do you think about the Gen Z?
You see, the problem with my generation is, as a fellow person who's born in Gen Z, is I feel like we were born and brought up with too much opinions. And I feel the economic climate that we're in as Gen Zs, from COVID up until now, has, I think, caused a desperate cry for help for our generation. In the sense that nations with people who have Gen Z in them, obviously, which would be around the world, would need strong leaders. And I feel that a lot of the people in my generation have too many opinions on things that really don't matter, to come down to fundamental survival scenarios. For example, I can only use Canada's economic climate because I live in Canada. And I can honestly say, I can't speak for all of Gen Z, and maybe a lot of people feel the same way as I feel. But I feel, though, that as time goes on in Canada with Gen Z, I feel we start to get a little too out of hand with things like feelings, emotions, and that won't save people's families from the current economic situation that Canada is in. It's not going to help pay for my groceries, and it won't solve anything. For example, we'll take climate change, right? And a lot of people in Canada and agree with a carbon tax. We have carbon tax. So we pay on anything that produces carbons, we pay carbon tax on. And my personal opinions on that are maybe not what viewers might like, but it's just my opinion. And my opinion won't ever be expressed in any form of any interview in 04, 03 productions. It won't ever come into significance. But as of right now, because I'm being interviewed, I feel that charging people carbon tax and economic downfall is unfair, especially for people in our generation. We're in that time frame where people are into their mid-20s, late 20s, and they're just starting to get up on their feet. They're just starting to move out of mom and dad's house. They're just starting to actually get into their careers, and it feels we're at a disadvantage because of emotions.
No, that makes sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, you said you were talking a lot about the Canadian impact with the carbon tax and the price of everything. Do you think that Canada's Gen Z generation is different than the world's, or even to Americans?
Absolutely. I think in Canada we're a little bit too, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't know. But I feel that we're a little bit too soft. In the States, I see lots of people who Gen Z who have very, I would say, extremist opinions. We'll take MAGA, we'll take Democrats in the States, for example. They'll be protesting in the streets, posting videos of people crying over elected presidents in the United States. And I just feel like it's a waste of time. I really do. Like, the world still turns round and round, and your opinion on the matter doesn't really matter. A vote will count either way. Things just slowly lie on fate, and anything I say, for example, won't cause an impact on anybody else's life, because everything that I'm saying right now is just an opinion. I could say today, I don't like the color of that guy's shirt, for example. We'll say someone going down the street is wearing a blue shirt or a yellow shirt, and I don't like that. Okay, bad. That guy's supposed to wear the same shirt every day, and I'm just going to sit here and deal with that. And when you're making your opinions inflict on people, on everybody, like 40 million people in Canada, and we have to think about it as this. We think of ourselves quite a bit, but if you're in a political office, if you're suggesting things that cost everybody something, I feel like in that sense, we need to push emotions aside, and I feel our generation thinks only with emotions, and it's kind of disappointing.
That is very true. It is very disappointing to see how it all pans out. But we're talking about our generation, and another question about this generation as well. Like, how do you think that this generation is going to affect future generations, as in like where they raise their kids, the government, everything? How do you think that this generation will impact the future?
This generation is going to have a very negative impact on what takes place in the future, unless decide to push all emotions aside and do what your job is. I mean, I only speak of from somewhere. If you're a parent, your job is to raise your kids with good responsibilities and an understanding of the system. So obey the law, do as you're told, sort of mentality, right? And I feel with this generation, it's kind of the opposite. It's how do you feel on a matter? What can you do to stand up against justice? What can you do to stand up against the big man? And I think that's a bad thing. I think that causing somebody to believe that they can change the world based off of an opinion may be a bad thing. Maybe. And I only say that with discretion, to the sense of, in places where opinions don't matter, in places where emotions don't matter, especially if you're talking about a political office, your emotion should not get into the way of any form of decision making. And I feel that the generation coming, so Gen Beta, may have problems understanding that because people force that opinion down their throats, that their emotions matter more than the outcome of a situation.
That is very fair. You said you were talking a lot about how we could have fixed, or things we would do to fix future generations. But is there any other ways, like if you had all the power right now, you're in office, or you had to do whatever you want to fix this generation, how would you go about fixing this generation?
And that's a tough question too, because I don't see myself as someone who can lead fairly.
Fair.
And I see myself as someone who could make a lot of people upset based off, because I'm not one of those people that's gonna put my feelings before someone else's feelings. I'll tell you what I feel, I'll tell you what I think, and then it's up to you to do what you want with that. And whether you dislike me, whether you hate me, that's totally fine, life goes on. And this generation needs help to start with, financial help. And taxing the living crap out of our generation in Canada isn't the solution to help. Like, I don't feel that Canada has the economic strength to do with what we've promised, to build eco-friendly factories for EVs and things like that. I just don't believe that we can do that on such a massive scale that just Canada alone will make the biggest impact on climate change. And I feel like that was just based from emotional response. Like, if you sat down and really went over it, how can you actually think a country of 40 million people would be able to impact a world of 7 billion? I mean, it's unfair. I think taxing the crap out of the next generation coming isn't the solution to the problem, but will cause a problem within itself. Like, homelessness is on the rise. It's if you are a young parent.
Yes.
As a young parent, how are you supposed to pay rent, pay your taxes, pay your bills, and get food for your family? How would you do that getting taxed, carbon taxed? And God forbid you're one of those people, the very few, that don't have high school diplomas, that still struggle to get by, and have kids. How do you like, what would, I mean, I don't need to put it. You
It's very
eliminate tax. That's what I do. I would eliminate a carbon tax, and there would have to be, but I mean, I hate this guy, but financial stability is what makes the world go round. And until the financial stability situation in Canada, the world kind of stops.
Yeah.
It makes me angry.
It's true.
And I don't even know what I would do. In all honesty, I don't.
It's a hard topic, and it's very hard. All of it was financial, which is a big part of this whole generation. A lot of prices going up since 2015. Every type of price going up, and it's hard to find jobs. Yeah, you're making a lot of great points. The next thing is relating kind of to the aspect of the generation. Do you think that COVID-19 had an impact on not just the financial Gen Zs, but also their attitude, the way that they act, the antisocial, or do you think locked up for a couple of years, not being able to do anything, has an impact on Gen Zs?
Absolutely. The problem is, in the state of the world, it's either you were anti-vaxxers or you were vaccinated and locked up in your house. But I feel that in this generation, a lot of people, in this country at least, fail to put nation first, in the sense, like, if you're not do it for yourself, at least do it for your neighbor, because your neighbor might not feel the same way. Like, the lockdown needed to happen, in my opinion. It did. But at the same time, there are essential services that could not physically do a lockdown. Like, you can't stop companies like automotive, all those other stuff, because of lockdown. And it happened, and I believe it affected Canada in a lot of ways that I don't even fully understand. But it affected my generation in the sense of mental health was on its way down. People struggled with depression more than I've ever seen. I knew more people with depression than I knew people that could just function, like just be fine. I mean, but at the same time, it was something that needed to happen, and I think it was best for everybody in that situation that we took those approaches. But I wish there was just a way where we could somehow save the economy and save people's finances without it getting ruined and risking people being unemployed, Like, I knew people lost their jobs because of that.
Because, yeah, COVID had a big. Personally, I think COVID had a big impact on everything. I just wanted to see from somebody else in the Gen Z, as another.
Absolutely. COVID for everybody. COVID was huge.
It was huge. And one more question before I end off is, so a lot of the problems are in America, specifically Canada, with our financial burden, or just the way that Canada's been ran recently. I feel like that's just been a big impact on it. Would you ever consider or recommend moving to a different place? Or you think that will have an impact on Gen Zs, have a better lifestyle, or would Zs if they were to move to a different place?
As somebody, I like to think of myself as a person. I'm loyal. I'm loyal to Canada, and I would stay in Canada until my last breath. But I would never, ever, ever, ever say that if it risks your family, if it risks anything valuable that you have, family, loved ones, all that.
Keep your values.
Go somewhere else for the time being. I understand. And I mean, and this don't have carbon tax. They don't have these things there. And there's more people in the States too. And they have a stronger economy. Here in Canada, at least, as a person who's from Gen Z, I would stay in Canada on the sole purpose of my loyalty comes first for this country, through thick and thin. But that's just me.
All right. So you're saying that you would keep your to others, not you specifically. You would recommend to others if it hurts your values or what's close to you. You would consider moving, but for you personally, you would stay loyal to Canada.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Again, this is the host of 0304 Productions, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thank you.